Hi, welcome to another episode of 6'5 Guys. I'm Ed Mobley.
And I'm Steve Lawrence. For this episode, we're going to do our winter field training exercise. So every 2 to 3 months, we actually try and get out of our square range to shoot at distance in the field with wind and all of the challenges that come with that.
Yeah, and this allows us to, test out our equipment and test out ourselves and really what's sort of an extreme weather situation. And when you watch the video here, you'll see it definitely was extreme.
It's quite the adventure, and you'll see a lot of shooting. Take a look.
Ed, you about ready to go?
Hey, I'm ready to go. We got 300 miles to go for our winter field training exercise.
It's going to be cold but fun.
Oh, dude, it is going to be cold. I mean, when it gets above freezing, that'll be considered warm. So, indeed, it'll be a good winter
and
field
it'll be the first
exercise.
time we actually do the RV in the cold.
Yeah, and we may have to purchase a set of chains along the way and experience putting on some chains.
Well, I'm all set for the adventure.
Yeah, this will be an adventure. So,
all right,
folks, come along.
Hey.
So we ended up traveling to the spot at Rock Lake Rifle Range, located about 45 minutes southwest of Spokane, just off I-90, going south of Sprague.
I mean, just a terrific facility. I mean, they got steel out there. I mean, going out to close to 1,300 yards.
Yeah.
And the weather looked pretty good getting there, but as you'll quickly see, that changed.
So how did you think the RV handled now that you've kind of done a lot of the major maintenance items on it?
I mean, it's got new tires. I mean, that was the big improvement as far as cabin noise. The roof needs a little bit of work because the rubber is delaminated a bit.
All right, the adventure started last night. We finally pulled into St. John, Washington. There's the Match RV. Say hi, Ed.
Hello.
So we're going to be shooting all day today out here at Rock Lake Rifle Range, and we are graciously hosted by the Glorfields at their farm. Match RV had power all night and heat. That was nice.
Yep. And it's warm.
And it's warm. So I think it'll just get warmer from here on out.
Yeah.
But it definitely, we have snow, so the fact that this is our winter training exercise, I think, is quite fitting.
I think this is perfect.
Good training weather. And we'll say hi to Alan, also known as Fuzzy Amish, here shortly, who joined us. I think Clint and Mike and several others will be out here. Doug.
So we started off, once everyone got there, just sitting off rounds in prone, confirming dope.
Yeah, this was my first outing with my new Vortex HD Gen 2 scope, so I started, sighting it at 100 yards and then walked it on out. And I was pretty happy. I was doing headshots on a target at 881 yards. So far the scope is working well. May need to add length of pull to my stock because I'm getting a bit of shadowing, especially at the higher magnifications, even with the scope all the way forward. But I'll figure that out. Although you can see when we're shooting prone here, our bodies are slanted down and the rifles are slanted up, which kind of brings the scope a little closer to you. So this may not be the best example.
But those targets were, as you go out to distance, are much farther up the hill. I know. First thing in the morning, once I confirmed dope, I was able to get on target on that far target at 1,230 yards.
Yeah, so I was very happy with our our equipment and our hand loads. For me, the 130 VLDs were very accurate. My dope was right on with the shooter app. So very happy with that.
Yeah, I was shooting, for the most part, the 123 CNRs most of the day.
Well, and those are terrific bullets. I mean, we both shoot those. I mean, going out to 800-900 yards, I mean, they're right on there with the 130 VLDs. Again, I brought the 130 VLDs because we were going to shoot really out of distance. And
you can see shortly after we wrapped up shooting prone, we kind of broke up into different groups. So Alan Ed and myself went over to the stair step stage, and we ended up designing a little practice drill where we were shooting out to 5 different targets at different distances and set a baseline time, and then tried to lop off 10 seconds and see if we could beat each other's times on this.
Well, and what I learned from this, particularly watching myself in the video, is when you adjust your turrets,
yeah,
it really sucks up a lot of time. And so my first run here was a little bit over a minute, but by just doing holdovers in another run, I got it down to 38 seconds.
Yeah.
And so,
and what you see here is me first, and Ed follows me on camera. But these are our first runs. This is basically our first time trying to hit these targets, and I think in that first run, it's not only dialing, adding time, but just finding your targets, just trying to establish and get a sense of where each target is in relationship to the other. It takes a little bit of time and practice. So, over the course of running this several times, we were able to shave off quite a bit of time.
Right, and since my previous scope only went up to 15 power, the first thing you want to do is crank up the power on your new scope, because I can go up to 27 power, but you realize that can cause some issues if you zoom in too much. So I'm going to have to learn to manage the power wisely, so to speak.
One other thing we were doing to help each other out is in these winter conditions, it becomes much more difficult to find your brass. Once it goes off in that deep grass, because it's not trimmed regularly. So as people were ejecting the brass, we assigned somebody to basically collect the brass as it was being ejected, so we wouldn't have to be fishing around in the snow.
And another thing too on these stairs, we used slightly different techniques. I mean, I
initially sat on it, which is comfortable, but yeah, I ended up standing. I think the last time I ran it with my shortest time, I was actually standing on the steps and kind of hunched over, leaning against the stairs.
Yeah, and also the top step was such that I could actually get my rear bag underneath the rifle, so it was like shooting off a parapet. And I found that to actually be pretty stable. And right there, I mean, I tried different techniques on the stairs, and no one was absolutely perfect, but at least this one right here, allowed me the highest degree of relaxation. But you can still see there's some muscle tension in my left leg there. But I was able to isolate that because, again, with my rifle, I was resting it on that rear bag.
Yeah. So you got a 1 minute 5 second time on that. That's good.
Well, yeah, but as I mentioned earlier, by not holding over, I was able to get that down to 38.
Or you mean by holding over?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, by holding over. Yeah.
But I think you'll notice between the last picture and us here, we're working off the shoot house. The weather turned bad pretty quickly. It was nice and clear, and then all of a sudden, a couple hours later, we're snowing pretty heavily.
Yeah, I mean, this is really illustrative of just how crappy the weather was.
Yeah.
And warm enough for the snow to start turning into rain. Everything on the ground just starts melting.
Yeah, in this shoot house, it was pretty, I think, fairly well designed. Here I'm trying to find a decent sight picture on the targets, and I couldn't get my head over to the left far enough, so I actually moved over to a different port. What was challenging on this was for the near targets, you obviously have your muzzle lower towards the ground to shoot to the near targets, and my head kept on bumping to the ceiling, so I wasn't getting an optimal sight picture. A little bit of scope shadow, but still able to hit the steel targets.
Yeah, I ran into the same issue where your head would hit those beams, so I moved back until my head would be between the beams, and so I got a good sight picture, but what it told me is you just need to be prepared to be proficient, being a little further back from the support
surface.
It's a tough target, Steve.
I guess what I'm saying is when you practice, you need to practice, you know, in different positions.
Yeah.
You know, being close up to the barricade versus, you know, a little
Yeah.
further back.
Be amenable to, you know, having flexibility in your shooting plan. You know, earlier in the day, we actually worked across the various positions. So up top, you know, you have sort of your traditional stair step levels. They have a simulated
go.
roof stage on the top right. And then on the bottom, it's more of a doghouse style where, you know, you're in confined space with different boards.
Yeah, on the top left of the doghouse had traditional barricade-like levels, which, given the barricades we built, I mean, we felt very much at home doing that. The same with the rooftop section.
So let's talk a little bit about the distances on this we were shooting at. You know, earlier in the day when we were practicing this, we were trying to see how many shots we could get at a target at 595 yards
We heard that one.
across pretty much every stage of the this shoot house.
All right, Steve.
What we were doing here was basically
Good job.
within the bottom levels, walking out our hits on targets, and I think I've got my card here. We had one at 385, 426 yards, 422, 483, 564, 595, 619, and 720. So there was a lot to shoot at.
That's right, and right here
Now with this circle,
we're shooting at a variety of targets. That right there is a 595 yard target we're looking at now.
Yeah, you can see all the paint stripped off.
Well, yeah, and it was very difficult to see. And the thing I learned is they timed everybody going through the doghouse. And it took me 7 minutes, which was like twice as long as everybody else.
But you only had dropped 2 hits, right?
Well, yeah, I mean,
That's pretty good.
Well, like our motto, slow but accurate.
Yeah.
But where I wasted most of my time was locating the target. So I hadn't located the target relative to the geography, and that was a lesson for me. I talked to some other folks and they said, well, I see where the road curves, and then just past that I know to look for the target.
That's how I was doing it, yeah.
Yeah, that's how you were doing it. I didn't do that, and so I need to get better.
The yardage on that shot
respect.
was 619.
But I think here you can see a good example of what it was like looking through the scope, right? I'm just zoomed in on a camcorder, but pretty tough to actually not only find the targets geographically, but even see them in the
You're holding right edge?
weather conditions.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you missed, it was really difficult to spot your shot.
Here right now, everybody is inside with the propane
You can see
heater.
everybody's out there shooting with us.
Hey, we came out to train, and train we did.
That's right. Well, I mean, in all fairness, most of these folks live in Spokane, and they're like, you know what, we can get this weather whenever we want.
Right. We're not missing anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this was an interesting target here.
Didn't hear anything.
Very. I mean,
it again.
even reviewing the video, it was hard to see where we were shooting. Now, the snow does provide a useful visual cue to wind speed.
It does, yeah.
That's one of
right.
the benefits.
But as the day wore on, you know, you can see it went from white fluffy snow, and then it started to melt on contact. And then as we were wrapping up our day shooting out at the range, it almost turned into sort of a freezing rain.
Impact.
Yes.
So it was very slushy.
I saw it kind of turn to the right a bit.
Yep.
And we stopped shooting at the top levels of the shoot house.
Yeah, it got too slippery.
Yeah, it just got way
I think
too
up on that
slippery.
hilltop,
We didn't try
it's not blowing
that
as much as we
rooftop
think
over there
it
to
is.
the right. I don't think anybody did.
Yeah.
It just didn't look very inviting to lay down on top of that.
It was interesting though, because even though you could see wind was blowing out there, you were barely favoring right at a target at roughly 600 yards. So not a big impact in what we perceived to be a lot of wind up there, but it just wasn't working out that way.
Yeah, and when I was hitting it, because there's 3 circles at 619. I could see that they were swinging toward the left, so I knew I could come right a little more and hit it. Now here's a tank trap that they had up the hill, and what's really interesting there is if you're right-handed, you could sit down on a rock, and it was pretty stable. If you were left-handed, you had to improvise a bit.
It took us a while to get used to try to identify where the targets were, because we were essentially shooting at the same targets we were shooting at from the staircase stage.
Right.
And just due to the angular change, they were
look completely different.
Yeah, they were in different positions relative to one another.
Going out to
They
the
look completely,
458.
yeah. And you can see right here
me,
my supreme
capture that on
or
camera.
superb camera
Orange
skills. I mean,
Yeah, Ed's working on that.
I'll send our viewers some Dramamine due to the nausea
Oh, not
that's
the
certainly
free.
going to be induced by watching this. My apologies for that.
I'm having trouble
But I just
capturing
backed
that.
out and just started taking pictures of you.
Get a landscape shot there.
Right, see, yeah, there it is right there.
0.8 hold.
Yeah, my tip, for folks that are filming their buddies is if you want to zoom in and out to what they're shooting at, just film directly behind them and line up with their
Shit, I cannot see
barrel,
in this
and
camera.
usually you can
Yeah, it's
kind of
tough
find
with
what you're
the
looking for.
conditions.
Yeah, and that's what I tried to do here. I mean, Steve, I mean, you've got quite a bit
Shooting
of
and talking about what you're shooting.
videography experience, and so I'm just trying to pick up some of those so I can do a better job capturing your hits, because you do a pretty good job capturing
You can
mine.
see a couple of visual cues how wet it is. Look at that wee bad bag. So
Oh, it's soaking wet.
yeah, I literally felt like if I squeezed it, I would get quarter water out of
Oh,
it.
easily. But you know what? That dried out in the RV when we were driving within a few hours, completely dry.
How
My
much of a
cotton
hold are you
jeans the
using?
next morning
We're still wet.
were still wet.
Give it
So
1.5.
that stuff does dry out.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, on the way back, we were discussing the fact that
quite a bit.
jeans,
I think the wind.
even
now
though I
is
had
really picking up.
polypropylene long johns, I'm gonna have to upgrade my my
Outdoor gear.
my trousers. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean for weather like this. Now I notice you're not using your can.
Yeah, we'll cover that in probably an upcoming video, but I think for matches moving forward, I'm going to go with the muzzle brake and practice with the can, just because it's easier on the ears, easier for those shooting around you. But just given kind of the focus of this video, I won't go into a lot of the details. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll be doing the same thing, but we'll talk about that in more detail.
I'm going to go for the 81.
Okay.
You can definitely
Like
hear
I
the
said, I
wind
was-
there
I
in
was
the
1.5.
microphone.
Those are the
Off the right edge. Yeah, those are the VLDs.
And
so
I-
you probably want to do 2 mils.
Actually realized after I got home that I thought I had loaded up CNRs into my mags when we went up to shoot off the tank trap, and actually grabbed ammo out of the wrong box. I was shooting VLDs. So luckily that very far target was fairly generous in size, and I was still able to hit it using the same dope.
I've known visually,
I
you
got
can
it
look
on
at the
camera.
meat plats on the
got it.
VLDs versus the CNRs, and the VLDs
Wait, that
are
was a
much,
good
much
last shot
smaller.
for you.
Yeah, but when you're
How far?
I know when you're
Couple-
out there,
yeah.
it's easy to say here in a warm room, oh, just look at the meat plats.
you realized,
So this is the target.
one of the
that
things
you're
in
shooting at.
hindsight, looking back, was in a cold environment, right?
You go
tend
for
to
it,
lose
send it.
focus on a lot of things. Just your your fine motor skills tend to go. You're more focused on kind of just taking care of the task at hand, and sort of those things that would seem obvious in general
it's true.
observation. A lot of times will slip past you.
So you need to hold
Well, one
more.
thing I was happy with is
You need to hold
despite
more
being
into the wind.
soaking wet, I didn't shiver. I didn't have any movement induced by shivering, so I was actually pretty happy with that.
Yeah. Well, talking about just gear, you'll notice when I was shooting that last stage, I decided to just ditch my gloves because I had shooting gloves. They weren't winter gloves. I should have brought some winter gloves with me to keep my hands warm, but the shooting gloves use a simulated leather,
Yeah.
and once it's wet, you don't want to be putting your
like
hands
that.
inside a wet glove. It's just a recipe to get them frostbitten and cold. So I decided to just take the gloves, put them away, and just keep my hands in my pocket while I'm not shooting.
Yeah, so I have a set of mechanics gloves, and I noticed the same thing as that same simulated leather.
Yeah.
And even this morning, they were still soaking wet and cold. So I think for me, trousers something that does better in this type of weather, and then gloves that do better in this type of weather. And if our viewers, have any suggestions, please let us know.
Right.
So here's one here where we're actually able to spot the shot, and it's interesting. You look at that target, and you can see how the
Easily missing on one part.
yeah, just on the top part. So it's interesting with a bunch of shooters shooting at that target. The shots are going high, which I found very, very interesting.
Sounded like a ricochet.
And look at that one. The same thing. On the lower.
And you range them separately.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's some kind of weird updraft going on there or what.
Yeah, it's probably like a 0.1 to 0.2 mil difference, maybe.
Yeah. But I just found it interesting. It just seemed that most folks just seem to be shooting high on those targets. And again, that's why we're going out here, because those are the little subtleties that we're trying to figure out.
So what were your general impressions? Even though we didn't get to cover all of Rock Lake Rifle Range, we only probably covered a quarter of it during the day. What were your impressions in terms of kind of general layout and the location?
It's like a elevation correction.
I mean, I can't wait to come back there in better weather so we can explore the rest of it. I know you've seen it. I haven't seen all of it. But I feel lucky just that Doug will let us come out there and shoot, and if we can come out there in better weather where we can just isolate for the wind, where that's the variable we're dealing with.
Right.
I think it would do so much for our performance.
Well, we just got back to the RV after our little day of shooting. What do you think, Ed?
It was wet, cold, but I mean, it probably represents some of the more extreme conditions that we'll see.
Yeah.
And, we were able to get out there and hit steel at past 1,000 yards in some pretty cruddy conditions. So, I was happy with that.
Absolutely. I think we achieved what we set out to, come out here for some more field training. We had wind, which we were hoping for.
We did.
We were able to get out to distance and get still out to 12:30.
Yeah.
12:30. So, and also come out here and try out some of the barricades and whatnot. So.
Right. And, where there was a barricade portion, again, our practice, really helped us with that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we saw if you can't spot your shots, it's like almost futile. And, we saw that toward the latter part of the day, when it was really, really coming down.
Yeah.
But again, even when the conditions are challenging, we met a lot of the folks that we know from Western Washington, and again, that's part of the adventure. That's always enjoyable, is hanging out with your friends.
Yeah. Yeah, we had Mike, Clint, Alan.
Yeah. Just some great shooters.
Yeah, Eric Stroh. So, yep.
Yeah, no, it was very good. All right, Steve, we got the camera on you. So, what do you think?
I think we had a great time. So, it was a good chance to take the RV out in the wintertime.
Yes.
And what we learned there is
the roof's about to come off.
The roof's about to come off. We heard that on the trip out here. Yeah. It's very warm, and it was great also having them hook up the electric and having water available. So it was nice and toasty warm.
Yeah, no, it's and right now we've got the heat full blast. We're
drying some things out.
Yeah, we're heating up some drinks here, and it'll be nice here.
Yeah, and assuming that the pass is good to go, we're going to try and head back a little bit early and get back home late tonight.
Yeah, and if the pass is impassable, well, we just camp somewhere because we're in an RV.
Yep.
So and the water's boiling.
Yeah, and I'm actually looking forward. These field training exercises are always fun. I'm actually looking forward to the next one in the springtime.
Yeah, and right behind you is our very hot. See, look at that. I can even zoom in on that better than I was able to zoom in on the targets today. You always do such a good job zooming in on the targets, and I do a horrible job.
We're going to work on that, Ed.
Yes, we will. We will. Meanwhile, I'm gonna hand this back to you.
All right.
So I'm gonna make a I'm gonna make some coffee.
This right here just illustrates what the weather was like. I mean, we were actually laying down and stuff like this, and boy, I was happy to be heading home. I can tell you that.
Yeah, after a long day. You know, and even though it looks dark, we left, what, about 5-ish, 5:30?
That's typical winter weather in the northern latitudes, right?
Yeah. So would you, roof ended up being okay when you got home?
Yeah, I mean, the roof is fine. It just needs a little bit of work. And, but overall, I'm very happy with the RV.
Yeah, pretty easy drive. Just a little bit of snow on the way home.
Yeah, and I just took it slow and careful.
Boy, that snow on that pass really made it a bit treacherous.
Yeah, well, you know, it was kind of a fitting end, I think, to a trip that really threw probably some of the lousiest weather that you're going to encounter in the you know, the continental 48 states. You know, when you're going to shoot, I'm sure there's always worse, but at least for this pretty much sets the baseline for really crappy weather.
Absolutely, but I tell you, you know, one thing I learned, and hopefully you guys. Don't let bad weather keep you from shooting and getting out. We feel like it's invaluable to train and shoot and have fun in any weather conditions.
Yeah, I mean, I did some shooting today and it was raining, and you know what? Didn't even stop me, because I just thought about what I had gone through yesterday, and
it's all downhill from there.
A little bit of liquid sunshine didn't stop me at all. So I was, you know, happy with that. So.
Yeah, great. Guys, we hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to share, like, and subscribe if you haven't on YouTube.
And remember, your comments and your feedback, I mean, have proven invaluable. So, you know, please, you know, share your comments and feedback, you know, for this episode.
That's right. And remember, life's an adventure.
Stay on target.